Hey internet friends! As if social media companies weren't already oppressively censoring the internet, Bill Gates' Microsoft has decided to form their own Ministry of Truth. Only this ministry is more of an all-seeing eye type of operation. Along with Adobe, ARM, the British Broadcasting Corporation, Intel, and TruePic, Microsoft is putting together a coalition to, quote, develop end-to-end open standard for tracing the origin and evolution of digital content, end quote. In other words, they're developing a process to trace the origin of what they have dubbed over the last few years fake news. Since the 2016 election, disinformation and fake news have been the reason that social media and internet monopolies like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Google have justified censoring the flow of information. Do you remember the guy who allegedly came in and shut a round off in Comet Ping Pong in Washington, D.C.? That was a prominent example of the dangers of fake news that legacy media utilized to manufacture consent of this censorship. But I digress. Microsoft put out this press release on February 22nd. Basically, we already have social media companies doing the most they can to silence what they call disinformation. But Microsoft and Company is bringing the technology to the battle. With the title of this press release reading, Technology and media entities join forces to create standards group aimed at building trust in online content. They say they've identified, quote, a critical need to address widespread deception in online content. So they've put together a joint development foundation project established to address the prevalence of disinformation. And they're going to develop some technology and standards for certifying the source and history of this fake news. Essentially, since it's so easy for people to spread dangerous fake news through the internet, through a series of tweets or even a YouTube video, real harmful stuff, they're working to be able to identify the origin of it. Though, curiously, in their press release, it doesn't say what the punishment will be for being identified as the origin of whatever they dub as misinformation. The goal of this coalition is to distribute this technology they're developing to online platforms across the net so that fake news can be stopped in its tracks. These next blurbs are from Reclaim the Net, who did a fantastic job of covering this development soon after it emerged. Former Microsoft CEO Bill Gates has been a big supporter of modern moves to censor more on social media. During an interview at the Wall Street Journal Summit in London, Gates complained that the suggestions for suppressing conspiracy theories and misinformation on big tech platforms are less creative than we need at this point and called for smart solutions. When asked about the role of tech platforms when it comes to dealing with misinformation, Gates lamented what he described as a human weakness for titillating things, such as claims that the coronavirus is man-made or that there's some conspiracy around it. Gates added that social media platforms allow this type of content to spread very quickly. Of course, on this channel, I've repeated maybe a dozen times who exactly Bill Gates is, but maybe you'll find value in me repeating it again. If you watch my previous videos on Bill Gates, we've established that Bill comes from a very affluent family, as he's the great-grandson of the Seattle Federal Reserve on his mother's side. And his father, in addition to a career as a high-profile attorney with offices around the world, was on the board of Planned Parenthood. While most people associate Bill Gates with Microsoft, he's expanded his influence from technology to medicine to the food supply to government surveillance. And finally, we've demonstrated that while Bill Gates is a billionaire with the big bucks, he's also just a figurehead leading the technocracy charge into the future. And behind his power and influence from the very start has been the Bain Company, one of the big three management firms that has staffed, directed, and guided his initiatives beginning with Microsoft. And now they work directly with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So while Bill Gates is a perfect boogeyman, he's an even better frontman for a larger cabal at work. Some of his recent projects include attempts to block out the sun to fight climate change, releasing millions of GMO mosquitoes into Florida with the stated intention of eradicating mosquito-borne illnesses, financially backing a new infant formula we lovingly call Bill Gates Titty Milk. He's also making the push for everyone to eat lab-grown beef, alongside vaccine development, distribution, and testing those vaccines on the third world. And he does all this while financing news networks that report on his activity. And he drinks poop water. I didn't really know how to fit that in there, but poop water. He drinks poop water. And back in 2018, Bill Gates, who, by the way, is not a medical professional, nor is he an elected leader, ran a pandemic virus simulation which he projected would kill 33 million people if that simulation came to fruition. A year later, alongside the Johns Hopkins Center for Healthy Security, the Gates Foundation hosted Event 201 at the World Economic Forum in October of 2019. Event 201 was a high-level pandemic exercise that basically played out a pandemic with potentially catastrophic consequences, which then became what the Gates Foundation labeled Event 201, that would require cooperation between industries, governments, and key institutions. And on February 28, 2020, exactly a year ago from when I'm filming this, Bill Gates called the coronavirus the once-in-a-century pathogen we've all been worried about, as he sounded the alarm for world leaders to respond accordingly. Then COVID and lockdowns happened, small businesses went belly up, we're all being pressured to take a vaccine we don't want, and many of those vaccines were developed by companies that Bill Gates financed. People hate Bill Gates. No wonder he wants to censor the internet. In summary, Microsoft's coalition is probably just another attempt to censor information, not disinformation. It's opposition management. By the way, who monitors Microsoft and these other companies? Who makes sure that they're being held to any moral or ethical standards? What do you think, internet friends? You know, I always look forward to reading your comments. Thank you so much for watching, subscribing, and supporting my channel on Patreon. Bye!